There it is. There it is. I am literally on time for show today, as if I was on the radio or something. It is a level of excellence, being on time, that is unparalleled, on this channel at least. So welcome all. Welcome to the Gavin Seim Show. The top reviewed YouTube show on this street, where we just talk about the stuff that's going on. In fact, today we're kind of going to talk about anything, but I got a few things queued up for you guys. Pop into the live chat, hit a like, hit that like fast, boom, bang it. All right? Because it'll help fill that stream. Beverly, DC, MR, Johnny, we're all Fitz, good to see you. Chivos, buenas tardes a todos. Welcome to the Gavin Seim Show. This is the show where we talk about things like freedom and liberty, and sometimes constitutions, and sometimes bad cops, and, well, rarely good cops because we can't find any. But it's a show where we talk about a lot of good things. I hope you are all having a good Sunday. The Gavin Seim Show is one of those shows you can listen to anywhere that you want to be informed. You can listen to it in the car. You can listen to it at work. You can listen to it in church. Your pastor is probably boring you anyhow, repeating the same Romans 13 government dribble. Not all. I understand. You can listen to it while making love. I guess. Let me know how that works out. I don't know if that's something people do, but the Gavin Seim Show is here for you. Good to see you, all of you. Mexico, first, last. Hola, hermanos. Buenas tardes. So spread the word. I'm gonna show you guys some videos today on today's show, but I want you to drop in the chat anything that you want to talk about. And I've got a few tips for you guys. I've got a few things I'm working on. This show is brought to you by our channel backers and Patreons. So thank you to those of you that back the show and just help support the projects and keeping things going down here. I know I'm not this crazy frontline activist like cool people like James Freeman. He's taken everything from me. He's taken my crown. He's taken my viewers. But we can't all be you, James Freeman. Can I just say, because when I was in the States working, there was no James Freeman. Right up until about the time I left. I just want to show you one of the funniest lines. Because I rarely went out and looked for activism, right? I always took it very seriously, and I usually didn't go look just to do this, I guess, auditing as we now call it. I'm not bashing that, by the way. I just usually turned on a camera when I felt like something needed to be filmed and I needed to talk about things. YouTube was very different 6-7 years ago. Having subscribers meant something. You could talk about something and it didn't have to be sensational and over the top to show up in your feeds, because YouTube actually gave you what you subscribed to instead of late night trash like the 12 worst ways to die, so they could manipulate your psychology and keep you glued to a screen. But did you guys see this video? Any videos I mentioned today, I'm not going to play anyone's full videos. I might throw a few clips of videos in here today. But any videos I mentioned, please go watch the full video and subscribe to those channels. If your video is in here, it's probably a shout out, you know, and you guys should go check it out. This video here I saw a couple weeks ago. James does a lot of fun videos. James is great at being snarky. It comes from experience. And I used to be a little snarky in my videos, but I was always trying to be like so professional because everybody was always raking me over the coals, and it was kind of a different time, and I had to try and just be really like down the straight and narrow. But James is so good at just like calmly insulting people. It's a magical thing. And this video here that he did...
Sir, excuse me.
Excuse me.
Excuse me, you must sign in.
So he went to this town meeting. Now I'm going to skip forward. You can see my comment right here. My comment has 1 like. How is it possible? Okay, this is what offends me the most. I commented on a James Freeman video, and my comment has 1 freaking like. Now that offends me. Okay? And you should be offended too. You should be offended too. I'm coming back to your chat in a second. This is a live show. I'm really here. If you look at my comment, I said 146 is the best thing ever, and you should click and watch it over and over again, and you should, because if you go back in my videos, right, as far as I know, I was the first guy to go out and start doing role reversals on cops and asking them for ID. There's a couple of these. Go for Gavin Seim, ask cops for ID, and you'll see a few of these, and it worked very well. And so I could be a little snarky, but you must sign in to me as legendary, because this...
You're an attorney?
I'm an attorney, yes.
Oh, God. Where did you get your law degree? A Cracker Jack box?
Yes.
Oh, God.
I'm voting. I am.
You're an attorney?
I'm an attorney, yes.
Oh, God. Where did you get your law
Look
degree?
at his
A Cracker
face.
Jack box?
You should sit in.
I could just watch this.
Where did you get your
I could
law
just put
degree?
this
A
on
Cracker
loop
Jack box?
on my
You
wall.
should sit in one of the. I am.
You're an attorney?
I'm an attorney.
Can I even do a James Freeman? You're an attorney? Oh God. Where did you get your law degree? A Cracker Jack box? But what's almost as good as the comment is this guy, right? This face. This guy is like, what? Like, who talks like this? And I'm sitting here and I'm like, James Freeman talks like that. So I just had to give a shout out because that was literally one of the funniest things I have seen ever come out of an activist's mouth. A little snark. I have to say, there's a lot of auditors that we use this word. I never used that word. I just was filming, right? I was just trying to uphold the law. But this term after I left the USA, that as more people, as James Freeman started doing this, and other people started doing it, a lot of people kind of started doing it just with like anger and aggression to get views. And they have that right. And sometimes the conversations were still relevant. But I saw a lot of, F you and F off and all this kind of stuff. And people have a right to do that. And I'm not saying that cops and officials don't always deserve this, but the mark of someone who can really communicate effectively is someone who doesn't need vulgarities. I'm not saying that using a vulgarity is the end of the world. It makes you like super ungodly and a terrible person. I'm just saying that a person who has control of their words and can make their point and draw attention to their point using subtlety, maybe some snark, intelligence, knowledge, has much more power. Maybe not for pure YouTube views and revenue, but for communication and actually affecting, making people listen to them, I think has a lot more power. Anyways, I'm going back to your comments now. Is it true that Mexico and Guatemala are having issues? No, I believe you're talking about the issue with, let me see if I can find it here. I believe you're talking about Ecuador, okay? Ecuador went, let's see here, let me see if I can find a summary here real quick. What Ecuador did, and I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, Ecuador recently raided the embassy of Mexico to kidnap a person that was applying for political asylum. Okay, so the goons in Ecuador, and wasn't Ecuador the same scumbags? Hold on. Yeah, Ecuador was the same scumbags that turned over Julian Assange to the government for bribes and for money and for favors when he was in their embassy for political asylum. So Ecuador has a history, and the goons running, the criminals running Ecuador have a history of being really just not caring about any sort of human rights or international law. They do what they want. And what Ecuador recently did is they went into the embassy in Mexico because there was it an previous Ecuadorian president that was seeking asylum, political asylum, with Mexico. So he was housed in the Mexican embassy. And you can see lots of news stories about this in English and as well as Spanish. But if you do them in Spanish and then translate them, you'll actually get better news reporting. You can use a translator, and if you don't read Spanish, and you can find these things. This is actually an official press release from the Mexican government. Now, understand, both of these governments are corrupt, but respecting people's right to immigrate, the right to asylum, there are international standards that most countries agree to, and the U.S. just pretty much ignores as well. So they're pretty much equal to Ecuador. They just have more money. But there's international standards that are agreed upon for people that are claiming asylum, refugee. And this is actually something that's kind of near and dear to my heart because I am a refugee from the United States, an official refugee that's been recognized by the government of Mexico. So even though governments are typically criminals, there still are these processes in place that sometimes can do things to help people. Now, I have no doubt that the politician that was being housed in the embassy probably did steal from the Ecuadorian people. He was a politician. But it doesn't matter in terms of the laws of political asylum. Right? This is it's well accepted that the embassy of another country, you don't have to allow the embassy of another country in your country, but if it's there, it's sacred. And you don't break down the doors, beat up their representatives, and kidnap people. And that's what they did. Mexico is very angry. There's petitions, and really, Ecuador's getting hammered from all over the world. There was a petition to remove them from the United Nations. Probably that will go nowhere. But don't underestimate Mexico in terms of a world power, and particularly in the Americas, is very powerful, right? So Mexico is way up here in terms of resources above Ecuador. And a lot of times people think of Mexico as this very poor country digging in the dirt for water. Mexico has a lot of corruption and a lot of problems, and U.S. takes advantage of Mexico as like the little neighbor that they can eke things out of. But Mexico has a lot of influence. Anyways, I think that I will try to answer your questions. MR says that I was a channel backer twice, but you didn't email me back. Don't back my channel. First of all, if that's true, I'm sorry. I always try and email back. Really, I try and email back everyone. But I especially try and email back people that are Patreons or channel backers. But I really encourage people to back my channel if you like my content. But that said, backing my channel, I do always try to respond to your emails. And so send me an email if I don't respond. And if I can answer questions in the chats, you guys know I'm like really, I'm just trying to survive, right? I'm trying to work. Ever since COVID, making money hasn't been easy for me either. I'm trying to make content. I'm trying to stay out of jail, whether it's US or Mexican jail. Like there's a lot of things happening, but I try not to miss your emails, okay? So I will do better if I can. I should note, and I actually just did this a couple weeks ago. There's a page on my site now, actually, that I did this. People sometimes, they're like, well, can you call me? And I'm like, not really. I got stuff to do. And it's nothing against anyone. It's just, if all my time is given away for free, I can't even pay the rent. So there's a lot of people that will take my time in an unlimited fashion. They don't back my channel. They don't have to, but you understand what I'm saying. Like if I give my time away, I'm not very good at saying no, right? I'm a very empathetic person, and maybe we'll talk about that later, but I really like to help people. I just don't have a lot of resources right now. I don't have a whole team. Hey, cue that light down. No, I don't. There's no team here, right? The cops show up. All my effects I have to do myself, right? The cops show up. They're messing with me in whatever country I'm in. I have to deal with that. I have to try and like balance things out, work, family. The world is tough right now. Let's kill those police lights over there, Frank. There's no Frank. I'm Frank. Yeah. So, I will say this. And yes, a public service truth, even the U.S. condemned Ecuador. It's a big deal on the national scene, what Ecuador did. It should have actually been an equally big deal what they did to Julian Assange. And remember, he's still sitting in jail, just like Jeff Winehouse, just like James Freeman, just like so many other people. Let's remember those prisoners' names. I should mention, though, while I always try and respond to emails if I can, but what a lot of times happens, people send me an email like, oh, Gavin, I'm dealing with this situation. I'm like, yeah, I sympathize. Here's what I think. And then there just comes this chain of them, of people dumping like 500-word emails with no paragraphs that are barely readable. And I don't want to be mean, you guys. Like, I really understand. Like, I've seen this for years. I know how people are getting abused. And I probably can't fix it. But I also, like, I can't sit and just try and, like, it's not even, oftentimes it's not even a cohesive question. And I know, I feel it here, you guys. I can tell that it's people who are hurting, who are frustrated. They're dealing with being abused. And I try to help. I really do. And I always have. But, and then it's like, oh, can I call you, right? Can I come to your house? And that's burned me before, right? Letting just people, you know, oh, we came to Mexico, we want to meet you. And next thing I know, they're online flaming me, doxing me. And like, this has happened here in Mexico. So what I have done though, because I've realized like I have bills to pay too, and I have a ton of information here. There's a page on my site actually. And if you want information on anything, editing your videos, doing your activism, dealing with cops, Constitution, moving to Mexico, anything that I know about, editing video, I'm good at that. Anything I know about, I will help you with it. I love talking on the phone and helping people, but I have to work. So what I've done is I've actually put a page on my site. And I'll do consultations. And these can be on the phone. They can be on a screen share if I'm helping you with something, maybe editing a video, something like that. And so you can book me for an hour or 2 or 3, and I'll help you with whatever I can. I'm not a bar attorney, right? I can't necessarily I probably cannot fix your legal problems, but I might be able to give you some insight. I can definitely help you with a lot of other things. And so I get a lot of people that want me for something. Also, I try to respond to my emails for free, right? I don't be like, oh, well, if you want my time, you have to pay me. No, if I can help somebody and if I can give them a response, it's just that there's a limit. And it's not that I don't like you or that I don't trust you. It might be that I don't trust you because I don't trust anyone because I know that people try to set me up. But I just did a couple hours of these last week for somebody that was dealing with some Mexico stuff. And so, yeah, I will put a link to this here, but it's on my page. This is on my page and you can go. I mean, it's right there. You don't even have to do PayPal now. You can actually just add this to the cart, book a session, and then send me an email afterwards and say, hey, I'm free this day. Can we do this at noon or this date, right? It's that simple. And I'll get on the phone with you and help you answer your questions. I'll even do interviews, right? You can book me for an interview on your YouTube channel. Within reason, as long as we're not just there to make me look terrible. But heck, even then, I can hold my own against a hostile interviewer. So I'll probably be fine. But really, you can book me for an hour. Right now, it's $125. If I get popular, maybe I'll raise that. It's not very expensive anymore. You can book me for an hour for a consultation, an interview, whatever you want. Just add it to the cart. Go over here, add to cart. Right? And you got an hour of my time. I still, especially with everybody, but especially with channel backers and things like that, I try to always respond to emails. Sometimes I just miss them. Don't message me on YouTube or on Patreon, like actually send me an email. Okay, let's move on. If you guys are interested in that, you can check it out. I just wanted to shout that out. Maybe I should start putting that consultation link in my videos in the comments. So if somebody really everybody's like, oh, Gavin doesn't want to help. I asked him a question, right? But why am I always supposed to give everything and no one else is? Sometimes that confuses me. So do you really want my help? I'll try to help you. But if you want to sit down and be on the phone with me for an hour, like pitch in a little. Help me buy some tacos. Just like the people in the super chat pitch in to keep me live streaming. All right? Shout out to you guys. I can actually wink. I intentionally wink. It's a thing. I wink really bad on camera. But I know how to wink. All right? I know how to yodel. I'm a ventriloquist. I'm a square dance caller. I'm an activist. I'm a very experienced photographer. I'm actually thinking about doing some Mexico photography workshops. Working on getting a space down here where I can actually host live workshops. I do workshops all the time from my site, online and stuff, in advanced photography, basic photography, mostly advanced. But I'm thinking about doing some Mexico tours down here, if any of you guys are interested. What else? Top Rock, shout out. Buenas tardes. Daniel, retired in Mexico in 5 years. There are more opportunities coming to Mexico. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of corruption. Like, it's not easy to come here and just make a living because you don't know the culture, you don't know the language. I mean, that's a huge barrier. Retiring is very nice in Mexico, right? If you got a little bit of money stored away, you can buy a place down here. You're not stressing about that. It's very easy to get residency without any hassle. Like, so yeah. I appreciate you guys chatting. I'm not reading all your chats, but I am looking at all of them. And let's see here. I realized a month ago you were the first of the First Amendment auditors. I guess that's probably true. There were certainly people that inspired me. Particularly, there were some early people that would challenge, like DHS immigration checkpoints, things like that, that kind of inspired me early on. Those were some of my first videos when I started traveling a lot, doing my photography in my RV with the family, and just started realizing like what a police state we had with all these checkpoints in the Southwest. That was really my first instance. If you go back on my channel, my very first step was me trying to stand up for my rights at a checkpoint. And I did, but I was scared. It was crazy. Go back and watch that first video. It's on the channel. I actually went back and uploaded the very first one. And in fact, if you go to border, let me see if I can find the first one for you guys. This one is very common, right? People see this one a lot, but it's not actually the first one. And somewhere I have the first one. Right here, I think. This is it right here. This is it right here. This is the first one.
We're on 67 headed towards Marfa.
Yeah.
We have an inspection station.
2012. Asher's yelling.
Of course.
I didn't really know what I was being charged.
But you can watch this video.
Recording?
That's none of your business. That's none of your business.
Okay. Is there a reason why you're recording?
Because it bothers me constitutional rights by detaining us. It might be detained, sir.
Now, I was pretty ignorant at this point. I just watched other videos and done research. I'll post this in the link if you guys want to save it and watch it later. This is the first video. This was posted 8 years ago, but it was recorded before that because I had never actually released this. This was recorded in 2012, 2011. I think it was 2012. It says 2012. I thought it was 2011, but I could be wrong. If it says 2012, it probably was 2012. Let's do a few more topics because I'm waiting. You guys have stopped chatting. How many are in the live stream right now? You got to keep that chat going, people. Like, this is your job on the show. On the show is to keep the chat going. Where is, I showed you that. Let me just see here. There's only 30 of you, 40 of you in here. MR says, and I appreciate the super chat, and I appreciate your backing the channel. Please explain, are you learning Spanish instead of expecting them to learn English and cater to you? Es que en realidad nunca fue así. Nunca fue como, tú tienes que hablar inglés, yo soy americano, yo tengo dinero. Siempre desde la primera día, yo fui como, yo voy a hablar español, eso es su cultura, yo quiero absorber su cultura, yo quiero valorar su cultura. Ando con mis cámaras, ando en las calles, ando hablando con la gente. Entonces, desde la primera día, cuando solo puede decir hola, buenas o hola, y hay un video de eso también, hay mucha gente que me dice, Gavin es muy presumido, no quieres hablar español, cosas así, porque no ando hablando en español con la pinche policía. Y yo no tengo que hablar en español con un pinche policía que quieres chingarme, ¿ok? Con ellos voy a hablar inglés y me vale. Porque ellos están ahí por violar los derechos de la gente y ser rateros. Yo no tengo que aguantar eso. Pero la gente confusa porque no viven aquí y no saben sus derechos. Pero en realidad, desde la primera día, y sí, me tarda años, amigos, años. Pero sí sabe y sí hablo. Does that answer your question? And yes, I have thought about starting a channel. It's just none of the channels make money anymore, guys. Like, unless you do crazy, sensational, over-the-top stuff, you can't just have a channel talking about stuff. So I don't know. But yes, in answer to your question, assuming it's a completely genuine question, this is the first thing I always tell people when they're like, hey, I want to go to Mexico. I'm like, start practicing Spanish now. And people that live in the U.S., we see this in the way that gringos treat Mexicanos and Latinos. Like, oh, why don't you speak English? People have no concept. Lazy people who only ever learned one language, nationalist, ignorant people like most of us were, including me in the United States. Like, this is America, we speak English. That kind of crap, where we're running around thinking we're better. That puts us in this mindset that, oh, other people should speak our language. It's easy. We go to their country. I go to Mexico. I should speak their language. Yeah, you should. But it takes a long time. And so anyone who's making fun of someone else for their language skills is actually projecting their own insecurities and their own lack of abilities. And I see that a lot in my videos. It's completely obvious, and I've explained in very clear terms. Look, I lost 10 subscribers just for speaking Spanish. See what happens when I speak Spanish? I lost 10 live viewers. More than that, we're down to 23 now. We were at 40. Look how many live viewers I lost just because I didn't speak English, Gavin. Speak English. But I always say, thank you guys. I always say, if you're coming here, whether it's to retire, whether it's to escape, start now. You're never actually going to learn Spanish in reality until you get on the streets and talk with the people. The app isn't going to teach you. The Rosetta Stone isn't going to teach you. You might learn, right? You learn words, and it'll help a lot. So get those apps, get the Duolingo or something like that and start now. Because even if you stay in the States, being bilingual is very valuable. I wish it would be fun to go to the States now, and I know like when family members do, it's fun. Because now the Mexicanos that I never really understood growing up that lived all around my community, I could talk to them like friends. It completely changes the dynamic and the interaction and how they would respect you if you could communicate like that. They thought something went wrong when I switched to Spanish. So I have some videos that I get a lot of flack on because and they say I'm an arrogant gringo refusing to speak Spanish. And it did take me years to get to where I could communicate like I just did in Spanish. But why on earth would I take on a legal matter of a police officer trying to set me up for something and use my second language for that? Even though I'm pretty good, it makes no sense. Unless I want to have an activist encounter. If I want to protect my rights, that's the advice I would give you. You're going to come down here for the first 2 or 3 years, unless you've already learned it, your Spanish is going to be terrible. So if you're in a stressful situation with a cop or something like that, and he's trying to mess with you, speak English. You have that right. You absolutely have that right. And yeah, if you work with Spanish speakers, if you practice, the only way to truly speak a language is speak it with native speakers. And that's what people don't realize. They think they can get an app or do a 1-week course because they see all these ads online. So then they see somebody, whether they're a Latino in the United States or a gringo in Mexico, and they're like, oh, this jerk, he thinks he's so self-important and he's so arrogant, he doesn't even speak our language. Who's really self-important and arrogant and an ass is the person saying that, because what they're showing is truly how ignorant they are of how things actually work, of how the world is. And it's important to stand up to bullies like that, which is why I never let them push me around. I'm gonna speak the language I want to a cop. If I feel like scolding a cop in Spanish, I'll do it. And if I feel like telling him off in English, I'll do it. I don't care where the bleep country I'm in. I choose the language I speak. Now, if I'm at the taqueria, if I'm talking to an abuela on the street, I'm gonna try and be part of her culture, right? I'm gonna try and speak her language. But a cop is not there to serve me. A cop is there to screw me over. Do my kids speak Spanish? Yeah, my kids speak pretty good Spanish. It's usually easier for the kids. They don't get out as much, but as they get older, pretty much all my kids can speak Spanish just fine. And native level, they probably will be. The young ones probably will be at a native level. I mean, kids aren't even at a native level in their own language. So native level, I think, is relative. But yeah, by the time they're 15, they should be at a native level, the little ones. And the other ones will, at the very least, be very fluent. Tried to purchase a ranch resort parcel in Baja last year. The listings had sat for months. You got to be really careful. And this is something else that in the consultations I mentioned that I can give some insight on. And one of the things I've learned is down here, it's about being able to get in touch with the right person is really important. Services that are actually advertising and catering to gringos are normally screwing you over. And so what you want is to connect with people that are actually real, like working in the normal trades down here. Because the people that target the expat community are normally going to be charging way more, doing everything very by the book, which in terms of property acquisition, you probably do want to be very by the book. It can be really complicated. A foreigner is not even allowed to own property on the beach within like 100 kilometers of the border or the beach. And there's these workarounds, but you want to make sure your ducks are in a row. And so in terms of buying property, be very careful because people have been very grandly screwed over if you want to buy a resort or a beachfront property. And there's ways to do it. It's just a little complicated. So this is why I'm going to start doing more like consultations, translation services for people, helping people out. My brother Nathan's also very good at this, particularly with immigration stuff because he's dealt with it for a lot of people. So just be careful when as a foreigner, you can buy property here. There's just some things to kind of work around. Why are all the Mexican police in your vids overweight? Mexico is an extremely obese country, just like the US. I think the US is still more obese than Mexico, but it didn't used to be this way, right? The snack, all this junk food, snack foods kind of became really the thing and the obsession, I would say probably in the 80s or 90s. And so if you go back and you look at videos from Mexico from that time, even in the US almost, it came sooner to the US, I think, and then it worked its way down to Mexico. So it's the same garbage food, lack of exercise. There's a lot of talk about it down here. Like everybody knows it, but it's also kind of laughed at. The diabetes is off the charts. They absolutely are dying from Coca-Cola down here. Coca-Cola is practically a religion down here. They're so obsessed with it. Yeah, there's actually videos on that from other YouTubers. And let's see. The cops let you go. Yeah, in terms of cops, you definitely should always expect cops to cater to your language because you have no obligation to talk to them. So speak to them in Hindi if you want, right? It's their problem. And that's always how it should be. And it's the same. If you're a Latino and you're in the US, don't speak, and your first language is not English, do not speak English to the cops. Speak Spanish to them. In fact, I know Mexicanos, and I applaud them. They speak English at a very fluent, almost native level because they've been back and forth most of their life. But when they deal with cops in the States, they'll just talk to them in Spanish. And when they deal with cops down here, they'll talk to them in English. So I know people like Ramon that are actually U.S. citizens and Mexico citizens. They go back and forth at different times in their life. And the Mexican cops they'll speak to in English, and the U.S. cops they'll speak to in Spanish, because you have zero obligation to help someone rob you, and that's very important. And going back to MR's point, and yeah, I mean, cops are going to try and screw you over. They're going to try and screw you over. So what else? Can we do a couple breakout videos today? Because the show, how long have I been on? I was going to show you guys a couple videos today, but I've already been on for what? I might wait on some of these. I've already been on for a half hour. I just wanted it's been too long since I did a show for you guys, and I wanted to get on here. Why am I getting dumb notifications on my phone? You just got to turn them off all the time. Every time you install an app, you got to turn off notifications, or it'll just be constantly annoying you. This video caught my attention. I'm going to put a marker in the stream so I can cut this out for later. Okay, this one's fun. Cops. Let's talk about cops ODing. Now, we know cops are drug dealers and narcos in pretty much every country in the world. The government that restricts things, when the government's restricting something, it's because they want to make money on it. Drug war, whether it's US, Mexico, doesn't matter. It's all a scam. It always was. If the government wants to restrict immigration, it's a scam. It's a violation of the Constitution. No one should have to get permission to travel. It's created to control you, to extort you, to put people in jail, and to make them pay money. The government is always looking for ways to make money without having to work for it. We have to work for it. They don't. So this is how police are. There's this news story, and I'll drop it in the comments here. Let me just give you the overview, right? It's a news story, and it's actually about a year old. It's a news story about a Florida officer accidentally OD'd on fentanyl, is what they're saying, okay? So here's what happened. Let me switch over here.
You advise possible exposure.
Tavares police said they're releasing this difficult footage of an officer who is now doing okay.
She's okay.
Warning about how dangerous fentanyl can be. Courtney Sullivan with Tavares.
She was trying to key up on the radio, and you could hear in the radio traffic almost like she was choking.
We just know she sounded weird.
Sullivan said the officers found Bannock in and out of consciousness. They got Bannock out of the car at night.
She said she just barely...
So apparently she found fentanyl and overdosed on it because of the wind. But she's okay. Now, what I love about this video is the cop's the hero, right? Because this is mainstream news. This is great. This is great. A few days later, another, actually mainstream news site, because everybody was like, this seems like total bullcrap. Like, obviously no one believes the police. We know that they're violent, drug-addicted criminals. Okay, that's what Blue ISIS is. A few days later, another story.
Warn you that the video you're about to see may be difficult to watch.
It's difficult to watch. These police ODing.
You advise possible exposure.
No one expected this to happen when Tavares police officer Courtney Bannock found drugs on a passenger during a traffic stop.
You get warrants?
Officers had to administer Narcan to Bannock last week.
47. Right, she's ODing.
Because
looks like our little cop friend had a little craving. So here's what's funny about this video, though, just a few years later, is they get this expert on, right?
Okay.
Overdoses are killing hundreds of Americans every day, and the biggest driver of our overdose crisis right now is fentanyl in street drugs.
Doctors like Ryan Marino are now analyzing this dramatic body camera.
I feel very, very badly that this officer had such severe
He's trying to put it
symptoms and
nicely
such a strong
here.
reaction. My concern is that the footage does not show anything consistent with an opioid overdose. And the symptoms that are reported and that we're seeing are actually the opposite of what you would see in a fentanyl overdose.
Dr. Marino recognizes the fears of fentanyl and the many problems it is causing across America.
So,
what an opioid overdose looks like.
Usually people will have a very slow, shallow respiratory rate, or they won't be breathing at all.
So the cops make up this story for whatever happened, right? Who knows what actually happened and why this girl cop, or maybe they staged it all, right? Because they love to make drugs the enemy when they're actually the enemy. Now, I'm not saying fentanyl is good by any means. I'm just saying, like, this is how cops work. And so they get a doctor on here, and he's like, yeah, that's total BS. And he has to say it nicely because he's on mainstream news, right? They had to find a guy that wasn't like me that would just say it like it was.
They might have started
and the ways you can get exposed.
And none of those things were seen. They might have started turning blue. You might see very narrow pupils, and none of those things were seen in this video.
And the ways you can get it by touching fentanyl.
They were saying that it was very windy and could have been blown into her system, and those are just not ways that you can overdose on fentanyl.
It was very windy, and those are just not ways you can overdose on fentanyl. So, as it turns out, the Tavares Police Department are liars. Are we shocked? Now, probably nothing ever came to this except for the person that they probably accused somebody of trying to assault an officer with their fentanyl. We can look into this a little bit more. Somewhere these videos popped up. And I was just like, wow, these guys, it never stops. The lies from police never stop. They're always trying to set people up. They're always trying to paint themselves as heroes. And in reality, they are the addict, violent, drug-addicted, thieving criminals. They don't protect our communities. They don't protect our country. They're not heroes. They're not good. They're order-following thugs that are in it for themselves. And it's sad to say that. I wish that wasn't true. And I even know that there's people that try to become cops that actually have good intentions. I actually do believe that. I just know that they either get turned to the dark side or they get fired or they leave. Like, I know this from talking to them. I know this from firsthand experience from people who tried to be good cops. That's what happens. The reason you don't have good cops is not because there's no good people that want to be cops or that think they want to be cops. It's that when they find out what it's really about, they either become a bad cop, because that's how you succeed, or they're gone. Or they become a whistleblower, and then usually worse things happen to them. I just thought this video was just the epitome of how police actually work, right? I don't know if we ever got a report on what really happened here, right? But they're really trying to make the officer, I couldn't breathe, officer who overdosed in traffic stop recounts fentanyl exposure. So they're sticking with the story that it's fentanyl exposure because she touched her, the wind blew it, even though the expert on the news said this is absolutely not how a fentanyl exposure works. But no one cares, right? Police are heroes. Police are protect us. Drugs are bad. This is how we're taught to think, right? This is how we're taught to think, is that we just believe whatever they say. But police are pathological liars and psychopaths. And yeah, Johnny says, I've seen people charged with attempted murder because the police OD from touching it, allegedly. There's almost nothing that you just touch and it hurts you. That's, as usual, as always, police are involved in shady dealings, doing drugs themselves, saving drugs for themselves, planting drugs, etc. And when things go south or they get caught, they're going to blame it on the nearest patsy that they can send to prison and get a bonus for. Police are terrorists. And we need to understand that. We need to teach our kids that. And respond with calm and educate people, right? I think it's still important that we respond with love, even to our enemies. And I think that's why it's important that our conversations are strong but informed and educated, that we know our rights, that we know what's going on, that we know that these constitutions don't give us rights, but they're inherent, and that we stand up for people. I'm going to flag this so I can pull it out later and make this a separate video. Just crazy. Tavares police, you guys are amazing liars. Let me do that fake wink. All right? We got that. Cut that. Hey, we're back. I started speaking English again, and we're back to 43 viewers. How about that? I mean, this is amazing. No one wants me to speak Spanish. Everybody tells me, like, Gavin, you need to speak Spanish. You can't even speak Spanish. And then when I speak Spanish on this channel, what happens? If I switch to Spanish right now, I'd lose half the viewership. I mean, I guess that's fair since you guys probably don't speak Spanish, most of you. But hey, I do my best. I do my best. I see your comments, some fun comments in here. What else should we talk about? That was funny when you tried lecturing a man in Spanish using broken Spanish. It made you appear very knowledgeable. I don't even know. I don't remember what we're talking about, Deebsy. Send me a link. Drop a link. Because I don't know that. It probably happened. There's something important to remember. A person who tells the truth, even in a language that they're poor at, has more courage, more balls, and more wisdom than you in your native language telling a lie. It's like one of the laws of physics. So people usually, I don't really try and be an activist down here. The culture down here as well gets aggressive and racist. If I'm a happy gringo tourist at their restaurant, it's fine, and with my friends, it's fine. But if I'm a crazy gringo activist online, I get a lot of hate from people down here as well who want to worship the state. And usually what they will do is make fun of my ability to speak Spanish. And I'll be like, well, speak English then. If you want to, you can speak English. I'm doing the best I can to speak Spanish. So one thing that I won't be shamed about is being imperfect in another language. It's frustrating because I'm a very clear communicator, right? I've been trained. I was a Toastmaster. I ran for Congress. I did all these things. I did podcasts and still do. So I've tried for a lot of years to refine my communication skills. And when you go to a different language and a different culture in a different country, yeah, it's hard because you know that you have something to express that's valuable, but not only can you not communicate it at times, even when you learn how to communicate it, it sometimes doesn't resonate with them because it doesn't have the tone that reflects their understanding of the world based on their culture. So it's actually more than just communicating. And this is something I'm very slowly learning, but I may never be that good at because the nuances of culture people vastly underestimate. Vastly underestimate. And I don't speak Russian. So I can't switch to Russian. But yes, I'm just looking at the comments here. and that's cool, Deebsy. I'm not necessarily saying that I wasn't necessarily directing the response against you. I was making the response because I've heard that a lot of times from people who are aggressive. The truth is, what I've learned is someone who wants to tear you down, whether it's your family, your friend, your enemy, there's actually not a lot of difference between a friend, a spouse, and an enemy when they're angry. If someone wants to tear you down, you have to understand that nothing you do will be correct, right? When they're in that mode, and if someone's constantly that way in your life, maybe if they're treating you like an enemy, maybe you should realize that you're an endeavor entirely without merit and withdraw. And sometimes I need to realize that too. I want to fix things. I want to communicate with people. I want to come to a reasonable agreement. I want to make it better. It's actually in my nature. And sometimes it's hard to realize I'm not going to win with this person. And yes, I can believe, knowing the police in Spokane, I can believe anything because they're killers. They're bad dudes. But most police in most large cities are, and in most small cities. In large cities, maybe they get away with more, but I think it depends. And I appreciate you guys. What else? What else? Just looking through the chat. And everybody's talking about Jeff, but I don't even know why they're mad at Jeff. I'm not actually seeing all the comments here as they pop through. Yodeling. I can yodel, but I'll tell you what. I usually don't yodel on the show because it's just a way for people to make fun of me. But I'm not ashamed of yodeling. I'm not ashamed of being a ventriloquist. I'm not ashamed of being a square dance caller, knowing how to sing, having studied a year of vocal coaching, having been 2 or 3 years in speaking coaching. I like doing these things. I've always just liked learning new things. My mainstay is photography, and I've become a master of that over the years. And when I say master, I'm still learning. I just mean I'm certified. I actually have a degree as a master of photography. The other things I don't have a degree in. I just like learning. I've actually been studying quantum physics lately because I just find it really fascinating, you know, like time and space and all this stuff. And I just like learning stuff. I just like learning. So to yodel on the show, I have to get a super chat of any quantity, but I have to get a super chat specifically requesting yodeling, and then I'll yodel on the show. That's all. That's kind of my rule, because a lot of people just don't want yodeling. I have to move the mic because yodeling will overdrive the mic, so I have to put the mic kind of out here, get a little bit of hall effect, room reverb, if you will. But it's the Gavin Seim Show. You know that on the Gavin Seim Show, on the show, the live show, where we're at now, we talk about anything. You know, we can talk about quantum physics. We can talk about the nature of time. We can talk about the nature of law, human rights, constitutions, in whatever country you want. It's something that I've been realizing. Should I even? We talk about whatever we want. One of the things I've started realizing, people have said to me, you know, Gavin, you do this because you're an empath. And I'm like, and I've always kind of been fairly like down to earth, conservative in terms of like, I don't want that hippie stuff, right? But there's a lot of science behind that stuff as well. And so I like things, I've been an herbologist for going on like 12, 15 years now. I actually know a lot. Next to photography, I probably know the most about natural medicine. And early on, I kind of resisted that. I was like, oh, this is kind of like hippie stuff, herbs and stuff like that. Now that I understand it and I know how to make antibiotics for pretty much anything, and I know how the herbs work, not just like, you know, oh, let's get some lavender essential oil, that will fix it. Not that lavender essential oil is bad. But I'm not talking about TikTok herbology and whatever the trending thing is. I'm talking about deep study of it. And I think that we get impressions based on our cultures, right? Whether your culture is South, whether it's Western, conservative Christian, Catholic, Mormon. Like as we grow up, we get all these impressions based on our culture and our family and our parents, for good, for better or worse. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. It's the same with people living in Mexico. They have a lot of biases and ways that they feel about things that are just different. And it's our nature as human beings and the way we absorb. When I first started studying herbalism, I was like, you know, I don't know, this is kind of weird. Like I'd always, when my mom, she would use, you know, some herbs and go to the health food store and stuff when we were kids, but she didn't like super deep study it. But there was some of that in my house of just using natural things. Now I realize that the quacks and the snake oil salesmen are the pharmacies. There's very few medicines that they sell at the pharmacy that I can't equal or better on my own. That's not to say I'll never take an Advil or I'm like the, you know, the most anti guy against this or that. I try to be open-minded about everything, but understanding natural medicine is very important. Then you get into like quantum physics and stuff, and you start getting into these people that like talk about understanding the third eye and the nature of your body and quantum physics and all this stuff. And there's actually a lot of science behind that, but on the surface, it really comes across as kind of mystical, hippie stuff. And so it's always like, oh man. But I try to be open-minded now because I thought the same thing about herbs. And I started studying herbs for myself, but also for my family, because going to a doctor was so expensive in the States. And when I started having kids and stuff, I didn't like being in fear of someone getting sick. And I was like, this is dumb. I need to learn medicine. And so I did. Now, that doesn't mean I do surgeries or anything like that, right? I mean, there's still stuff that doctors are good for. But doctors that are just peddling drugs, I have no need for them. And it's hard to explain that to people. I'm like, no, you don't need that. This is the, they're like, oh, we need to go to the doctor. I'm like, no, it's just the rotavirus. Just do this, this, and this. I'm like, oh, well, he has diarrhea. No, just do this and this. Okay, well, he has COVID. I'm like, no, it's not actually. Yes, it is, but don't worry about it. Just do this and this and this. And so, you cross over. There's always this crossover between religion, mysticism, and science. It's kind of this triangle where when you study Christianity or most other religions, and then you get over here to the kind of mystic stuff, and then you get over here to the science, and everybody's kind of hating on the other person as being a heretic, when really we should be trying to love our neighbor as ourselves like Christ did. But we love to pick other people apart so we can feel better about ourselves. It's what we do. It's what religion teaches us to do. That's why I always say, like, I'm a Christian because I want to be like Christ, not because I want to go to a church or because I'm a member of anything. I don't want to be a member of your club. If you want to be a member, that's fine. I still love you. But I'm not joining. And I've realized that this triangle of how often these things that, conservative Christianity, let's say, will be super dogmatic about, and that's heresy, and that's heresy. And then you cross over to science over here and to the more mystic stuff over here. And it's actually amazing when you take the Bible and then the mystics and then the science, how close things are actually interconnecting in the middle, even though people are coming at it from different points. So when people say, like, Gavin, you're an empath, and so I'm like, okay, I'll look into that. And then I'm kind of like, oh, okay, maybe they're right. Because I actually do find an interest in this stuff. And yeah, I mean, your quantum physics friends, Maverick, like quantum physics guys are usually kind of on another planet. But as I study a little bit of quantum physics and try and understand it, I'm like, oh, this is kind of making sense, even though we can't even really grasp it in our minds. But someday we're going to be beyond this body. That and I like understanding things, and I don't think it's a bad thing to understand things. I think it makes us grow, helps us be more open. Leaving the U.S. really kind of opened up my mind to that, to understanding that we're not all the same, cultures are different, and we need to stop. We need to pull the giant baseball bat out of our butt and realize that everyone doesn't have to be like us, and that it's hard for other people too, and they're dealing with their struggles. And I've always struggled with the fact that, I can always, how do I even describe this? I know I'm kind of rambling. If you've watched my videos, people have always said that Gavin likes to fight. Gavin likes to fight with cops. Gavin's angry. And I get angry at corruption. But if you actually watch my videos of cops' interactions over the years, the more famous ones are usually being very direct and demanding and full frontal, as it were. But I actually have a problem where I don't actually like to say no. If you've watched my videos and live streams over the years, when a cop came up to me and was friendly, it's like, hey, hey buddy, like this is what we're trying to do. You would normally see me reflect, not their words, but their intent. Because as a cop approaches me, I can almost feel, I'll be honest, I can feel if they're up to no good from across the street, across the room. It's almost like I can feel their intent. And I can do that with people. Obviously, it depends on my mood and where I'm at. But sometimes, a lot of times when I'm interacting with people, I can just like, they're lying. This person's sad. This person needs help. This person's having a good day. It's not like I can just like peek into people's minds and see exactly what they're thinking or anything. But, and I know a lot of you probably experienced this. And so when I did activism, Usually what I was actually doing is mirroring with calm, right? Not trying to be angry, but if a cop came up to me and be aggressive, people like, Gavin's so aggressive with cops, but actually I was just reflecting their demeanor to protect myself. It wasn't that I didn't actually, and if you've watched a lot of my videos, you know that I would often try to redirect the conversations with these cops of like, look, this is what I want people to understand. And I would usually try and diffuse the cops once I got them to expose themselves. Is that making sense? Those of you that have watched my videos for a long time have probably seen this. And so, what do I think of public schools? In public schools, we're taught to be ignorant. We're taught to believe whatever the popular opinion is, whatever the news tells us, whatever our peers tell us. We're taught to not question. I was in an Uber the other day with a guy that was around from before the drug war in Mexico, which wasn't that long ago. It only started like in 2007 here. And before that, Mexico was much more peaceful. It was this crap was not the same. Right? You didn't have the kind of violence and garbage. And we were talking about things like the virus and things like that. And I was like, look, it's okay to debate, right? Some people, I think this way and other people don't, and that's fine. We can have a discussion on that. We were talking in Spanish, of course, and so I did my best with this. But I said, anytime, in any country, in any place, in any topic that you're told you can't talk about it, you're being scammed, right? Whether it's a religion, a government, there's really no difference. Most of the religions are the same, are actually worshiping the government. There are really no differences. But if you can't ask something, and I think about it, and this happens a lot in Christianity, like, oh no, it's like, well, what about this? No, that's completely heresy. That's contrary to the Bible. The Bible, even as somebody who studied the Bible a lot, the Bible and Jesus don't say don't ask questions. Don't say just you have to, it says to have faith. And sometimes I think that's not even exactly what we think. Have you ever stopped and look at the Bible? And Jesus says, if you had faith as a grain of mustard seed, you would say to this mountain, be picked up and moved into the sea, and it would happen. Okay? Just think about this for a second. I'm not going to get all Christianity religiously on you. But Jesus says this, and then he's like, modern preachers are like, well, it was a metaphor, saying that we could remove the mountains from our life. And I've always kind of believed that. I'm like, okay, because I certainly can't pick up and move a mountain. But then you see Jesus, and he's taking 5 loaves and a few fishes and feeding 5,000 people. He's literally has control over matter. And he can take 5 loaves and basically make them extend forever. He can turn water into wine. And this got me thinking as I started looking at quantum physics, which tends to be very non-God and very, more atheistic, which is not how I feel. And then I'm like, wait a minute, don't these lines kind of interconnect? Quantum physics is saying like reality isn't what we understand it. If we could connect to the quantum field, we would be in a completely different level in terms of the things we could do. And then you look at Jesus, who's saying if you had enough faith, you could pick up a mountain and move it into the sea. And now let's go turn some water to wine and take 5 loaves and feed 5,000 people. So I'm not trying to diminish faith, but did Jesus understand quantum physics to the level where, yes, his faith was that powerful, but did he? It appears to me, I don't even want to get into a theological lesson. I hate the religious debates because they always draw us away from actually loving our neighbor. But doesn't it appear that Jesus actually understood the nature and the forming of the universe and had the faith and the confidence to be able to do that he could literally pick up a mountain and move it into the sea if he wanted? I don't know of any record of him doing that, but we certainly have records of the food thing. But what do we say now? Everything has to be like dumbed down and mainstream so that we follow order. It was a metaphor. What Jesus is saying is that you could remove the mountains in your life if you have enough faith. Well, maybe that's true too. We certainly have mountains in our life and sins and problems and things we need to do better at. But is everything really just a metaphor? Or are we really missing it? I don't really want to get into a theology debate. I'm just saying that no, loving your neighbor is not, our neighbors is not expecting them to cater to you. Well, no. But do you realize how powerful of a statement it is? I've been thinking about this because I get angry at the corruption, and I think we should. It's okay to get angry. But then, like, we're told, don't let the sun go down upon your wrath. Does it mean we shouldn't be angry? Or does it mean we shouldn't stew in our anger and let it control us? Because when I see corruption, I feel like, okay, we should be angry. But does that mean, like, when the sun sets, I need to calm down, breathe slowly, meditate, talk to God, relax, and let that anger go? That's actually a pretty practical advice. I think there's an unrealized amount of power in being peaceful. And that's why I've always tried to be peaceful. People say, no, we have to fight, we have to do this, and yet they never get anywhere with it. I'm not saying I'm a pacifist or that we should never defend ourselves. I don't necessarily take it that far, but I think I think projecting peace literally from ourselves. When Jesus says to let our light shine, have we stopped to think that, like, we're actually made of light? I'm not trying to be mystical here. Have we stopped to think that we're actually made of, like, protons and photons? Like, the actual makeup of our literal existence is light. Did you know that the heart, this is science now, you can look this up, this isn't mystic stuff. Did you know that the heart has actually been shown to have its intelligence on its own, separate from the brain? There's people that have received heart transplants and actually took up, like, food cravings of the previous person that they received the heart from. Do you know that the heart doesn't need the brain to keep beating? That it actually can create its own rhythm separate from the signals coming from the brain, and that there's actually scientific evidence of two-way communication between the heart and the brain? This is not stuff that we talk about that much, right? In terms of, like, there's institutes that have studied the coherence between the heart and the brain and all this stuff. And I think it's really fascinating. When I think stuff's really fascinating is when it gets maybe the religious-y kind of mystical aspect, but it actually uses some science to say, no, something's really happening. Did you know that the electromagnetic output, right? So the actual energy waves coming from our heart are like 100 times more powerful than those coming from our brain. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. I'm not saying what that means exactly, but there's actually been a ton of studies done into the fact that when you have peace, for example, or anger, that you do actually project that on other people. And so then I think about myself in hostile situations doing activism, and everybody was always telling me, like, anger, 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 we need to start a revolution. And I know when we're watching a movie that's exciting because we want the bad guys to get theirs. But in most of the situations that I've done activism, when I have a positive outcome, it's when I'm peaceful. I might be agitated, right? Fight or flight kind of comes in. These guys are violent. I know they're dangerous. But if I'm genuinely from my heart trying to calm the situation while at the same time educate people, usually that worked well. And so I could feel the response of people. You guys remember the old veteran that was attacking us when we were protesting with the flag upside down in Nevada? And he was in the face, he was trying to grab the flag from me. And I tried to argue, you can go find the video. Just search for Gavin Seim, flag upside down Nevada, something like that. And this guy was angry and he was hurting. And I think I didn't respond to him like I would a cop, right? I knew my rights. I could have pushed him away and been aggressive. But in the end, I prayed with him. And do you know what the difference between him and a cop that was trying to make me obey was? I could feel the difference here, even though I may not have realized that then. I could tell that this person wasn't actually my enemy. And the cop who wants to extort me, at least in that moment, is. What if we're vastly underestimating everything? That's what I'm asking. And what if people say, well, we can't just use words? But historically, words are actually the most powerful thing ever. and our intents. And I think the intents of our heart actually do go a long ways. And there's actually a lot of scientific evidence behind that. So I'm sorry if I'm not very good at projecting the excitement of like, yeah, I can't wait for the revolution. But revolutions, while they look good on paper and in movies, generally just result in more suffering, as we're seeing all over the world, as we're seeing as nations try and commit genocide against other nations, as we see governments trying to control us, trying to turn us brother against brother. The sheer force, the mind-pounding, blunt instrument force of loving someone, and I know that word can be used in a lot of ways, but I mean of forgiving someone, of being kind. Is it an accident that in the Bible it said, be slow to anger, be quick to forgive, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, and do good to them that despitefully use you? If you're a raised Christian, you've read those passages, but actually let that sink in. And if that sinks in, the power that has is almost palpable. Think about how contrary to the entire existence of humanity that is. Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, be slow to anger and quick to forgive, and do good to them that do wrong to you. It's actually hard. You can read the words, but say them out loud and actually think them here and project them here. It's difficult to do because it is so contrary to our nature. So maybe trying to be peaceful and calm a situation will get me killed someday, and I don't know if that matters, is all I'm saying. Because I think we're a lot more than we realize. I told you we could talk about anything on this show. I think I'm going to wrap up today. I don't know what else to say. That's just what was on my mind. I could say a lot about all that stuff. And I actually do enjoy studying the science of all that, not just the feel-goods of it. Because there's actually an astounding amount of science in that we can put to work. But I think I'm going to go take some photos. Maybe not on my moon landing camera. Or is it a moon landing camera? Did that even happen? That's a topic for another day. Okay, go watch the Y-Files. I don't care how you feel about the moon landing. There's nothing like a Hasselblad. All right? There's nothing like a Hasselblad. There's also nothing like an X100. There's also nothing like an Olympus OM2. All right? And there's nothing, and I repeat nothing, like a Linhof 4x5 with sheet film. So I'm going to go take some photos, try and chill today a little bit, think about that peaceful stuff, and try and get the toxicity out of my brain. There's always, as I mentioned, you guys can check out the consultations page if you want me to directly. Like I said, I try to respond to emails, okay? But if you go to seimeffects.com, which interestingly, yes, is my photo site, because that's my e-commerce site. If you want to see my photos, by the way, and what I'm up to and all that kind of stuff, check out that site as well. But if you go to seimeffects.com/consult, I've made a page for those of you that actually want help, whether it's with video editing, with legal, constitutional things, with Mexico questions, with me coming on your show, on your channel. That's fine too. Because I have to work too. I have to pay the bills. It's not like Super Chats buy tacos, but they don't pay the rent. All right? Why are commercials having in a live stream? Because YouTube. Because I guess YouTube wants you to buy premium. So anyways, you guys, do I edit videos? Do edit videos. I could edit videos. I've thought about editing videos. I mean, I have enough internet. I have like a 500 meg internet connection. So I would, you know, the rate would be the same. I'm actually very quick at editing videos. The problem with video editing, I'm very quick at editing photos too. I teach workshops on this. I can edit a wedding in about 3 hours. So yes, I would be willing to do editing videos just by my hourly rate here on the site and just see how that worked out. If somebody wanted me to edit videos, if it's somebody I knew or I knew their style, I could probably do it pretty quick and easy. If I didn't, the first ones might take a little bit of time. But I'm a visual person, so I've been doing video and photo for a long time, more than most the other YouTubers have. I'm pretty good in DaVinci Resolve. I'm very good at color grading. Color is my special. I mean, if you go to my site, I make I make a film pack that emulates film. So I'm super experienced with color grading and things like that. But yeah, I can edit videos. Usually I do pretty concise edits, as you see on this channel and on my photo channel, like just trying to shorten them down and really get them to the point. And yes, I will talk on the phone for an hourly rate or do a video. And you can actually just book those. You can just order an hour or two or however many you want right here on the site, on my seimfx.com/consult. And I'll, within reason, as long as it's not too personal, talk about whatever you want for that hour and consult on whatever I can. But I'll also be real with you. Like, I'm not going to say like, oh, I know how to get your charges dropped if I don't, because I know how the court systems work. I'll just be honest. And yes, I'll edit videos. I will teach you how to edit videos, and we can do screen shares and stuff. If you want to actually improve your own video editing, if you want to understand how to take better photos and videos, that's actually what I'm good at. That's what I have a master's degree at, is in photography. And the photography skill is kind of my day job. So yes, I am definitely available to help you guys out as much as I can. Just understand that I'll be perfectly honest with you. And I always reserve the right to say, you know, no, we're not, there's nothing I can do about that, right? But I do the best I can, and I think people that have booked me for consultation sessions were happy. So yes, you can just, what you can do is you can go to the site, book an hour, book 2, book 3. I would start with just an hour. And then basically just send me an email afterwards, let me know maybe 2, maybe 3 days that it's a good time for you, and usually within a few days we'll have you scheduled. I don't have a super advanced system because I'm not doing a ton of these consult sessions. I've left them pretty cheap right now, even though I should charge a little more for them. I've thought, you know what, I should start doing more consulting, more video editing, things like that, and learning things is awesome. All right, you guys, thank you for being here. And yes, MR Maverick, if you guys want anything, and if you have a question, send me an email. I always try to respond to emails. And if you really want to do something, then you could book it. Would I do a video debate with you? I might. I will do interviews, but most of the time if I do a video debate, people end up mad because, and I won't be backed into a corner because I know the stuff I'm speaking about, and I'm very confident in the stuff I'm speaking about. So you can, I mean, there's been many video debates where I was on radio interviews and stuff like that, and I'm very experienced with hostile interviews. If it's just a debate, I'm probably chill with it, right? If we're just having a real conversation. And if it's actually like a hostile interview, I'd probably charge more for that. I don't know. I try to never ignore people, but sometimes things slip through the cracks because I don't really have a team. So I do appreciate all of you who are channel backers, Patreons, and I do try to respond. But make sure if you want to get a hold of me, if you're a channel backer, I believe if you're a channel backer, it actually puts my email address in there, and send me an email directly and put in the subject, channel backer, I have a question, right? If you're a channel backer, because I try to respond to everyone's emails, but if you're a channel backer, I'm definitely going to be trying to make sure that I respond. And the border, yeah, I would happily do a debate on the border. In terms of that, I would do a debate on the channel. Anyone who wants to debate me on immigration better be prepared to be absolutely crushed on facts, because you will not win. And I will be a little hard on it because I don't approve of human trafficking and murderers and border patrol and things like that. And I've studied the history extensively. I used to believe, like you guys, not all you guys, but like some of you do, that, you know, borders are good and immigrants are bad. And then I realized that I was just a stupid, racist, ignorant child. And so, yeah, it's good. And I have no, like, people are like, oh, you don't agree with me on hating immigrants. Okay, I'm not following you anymore. As if that's going to affect me. Like, I've seen it all. I've seen the sheep worshiping the state for a decade now. I've seen many of them realize that I was right over the years, and hopefully you'll come out of it someday. But yeah, I've actually would like to do some public YouTube debates on immigration, because I'll destroy the argument of anyone who tries to give me this namby-pamby communist, immigrants are taking my job, they're bringing drugs, when it's literally the people that you support that are enforcing border terrorism that are doing that. So it could be interesting. Could be interesting. And yes, advice to a fellow citizen abusing a fraudulent legal system. Yeah, I mean, sometimes. But a lot of times people want my help in this, and I don't have a magic bullet. Because unfortunately, knowing the law, I could talk to you about the law and the Constitution, but knowing those doesn't necessarily save you in a court system that's a kangaroo court. Anyways, I'm going to go. I have some other errands to run. I'm going to go take some photos. Follow my Instagram. Go to my YouTube channel. Whatever. We'll see you guys soon. I think we've covered it for today. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you next time. Peace, guys. Love your neighbors yourself a little bit. The immigrants too, okay? Yeah. They're taking your jobs. They're taking your jobs. No, you're taking your own jobs. Take care, guys.